This is Steve Zeltzer, and I'm a candidate for the KPFA Board of Directors. And we're here today in front of Dan Siegel's office to protest the fact that Dan Siegel, as interim executive director of Pacifica, is refusing to allow the statements of the candidates on the KPFA website. He is also allowing the management of KPFA to prevent any notice of the election, encouraging people to vote. And also he's allowing the refusal of management to play the recorded carts of the candidates at KPFA. Even at KQED radio, when they did have elections, they played the radio statements on the radio. They played the statements of the candidates. Here at KPFA, there's a concerted effort and an organized effort to prevent the listeners and members of KPFA from hearing the points of view and issues that candidates for the board of directors are raising in this election. We think it's a travesty of an election. It's an undemocratic election, and we believe that it needs to be confronted by the members and listeners of KPFA.
The management of KPFA has done every possible thing they can do to make these elections completely bogus, because people, if they don't know what the issues are, who the candidates are, what they stand for, they have no basis to make a vote. And for example, we had made carts, 60-second carts, that were due over 2 weeks ago at the station. They haven't been played once. Their claim is that they can't play them during a fund drive. Well, how about putting them on the website so people can download them? There's nothing on the website. First of all, it's even hard enough to find the election page on the website to find out what the candidates stand for. Then there's nothing, there's no verbiage or anything about who the candidates are and what they stand for. And additionally, like, you know, they could put down all sorts of our carts. They could put down our questionnaire statements, which are supposed to be up on the website. This election is a complete sham, and the voters of KPFA are the losers in this whole process.
Hey, I'm here because this election is turning into a complete joke. It was bad last time, a year ago, when I got elected, and naive as I am, I thought, well, gee, we'd learn some lessons and things would be better this time. And in fact, it's much worse. It's incomprehensible to me that this network, which purports to have a democratic governance structure, can't even get candidates' statements who are running for important offices and governing the network, can't even post them on the web. This is 2007. This is no technological challenge here. It's clearly a political problem. The people in charge simply don't want the listeners to take the election seriously, to understand that there are real issues at stake. And they've kept information about it off the air. They're keeping it off the web. All we get is we've got the printed pamphlet, which gives a little bit of information, but it really doesn't. It is not I think time has proven it's not an effective way to communicate the real differences among the candidates. But they're not letting anything else happen. There's no other way for an ordinary KPFA listener, even a active, enthusiastic listener, to find out what the hell is going on. They can't even. There were the candidate forums where each candidate got a few minutes to lay out their positions. Those were supposed to be archived on the web. Every other program that airs on KPFA gets archived on the web, and they haven't even archived those statements. It's really just unfathomable to me. I mean, you know, I used to try to cut people a little slack and think, well, you know, they're incompetent, or maybe they're just not really motivated, but they're not actually really seriously out to destroy this process. And at this point, how can you think that?
Although we thought and we worked hard to have democratic elections at KPFA, the current election in Pacifica is more than a disappointment. It's pretty much a joke. And the other people that are participating in this press conference, I'm sure, have detailed a long list of problems with this election. Subversion of the election, suppression of the election by the station management in collaboration with a slate of candidates known as the concerned listeners, who were able to get their message out by raising funds and sending out an expensive mailer to the listeners while all other information from all other candidates is blacked out on the station during their fund drive. No, on the KPFA website, just for an example, right now, there is no information about the candidates on the election page. There's practically no mention of the election other than the candidate names. However, as of yesterday, there is one piece of information posted, and that is a letter to the community from Dan Siegel, in which he basically brands some of the candidates running for election to the board, candidates who have made critical statements in their campaign statements about the situation at the statement. He brands them as their statements, which are not posted on the website. Only his statement is posted on the website. He brands these as personal attacks, and then he lumps it together with statements of candidates at other stations, such as BAI, which he characterizes as hate speech. He goes on to say in this statement that KPFA needs leaders who are willing to expand, who work to expand the listener base and to contribute to fundraising at the station. Now this is echoing the line of the concerned listener slate, which sees a very limited role for the station board. The station board is no longer advisory. We're now members of KPFA, and we have a say in what goes on at the station through our elected representatives on the new station board. The concerned listeners would rather have it just be advisory, and Siegel is echoing that line.
Latest event here with all the other election violations that are going on and all these sort of patronage and cronyism backroom deals, Mr. Siegel's letter is the latest horrendous thing. His letter contradicts itself. In the first paragraph, he talks about that what some of us did here was essentially personal attacks without stating any specific facts to support that, when in fact what we did put out was a political history and criticism of what several staff and LSB members and management have been doing in the last couple of years, because the listeners don't know these things. So People's Radio wanted to educate people as to some of the dirty tricks and games that had been played. If you go to the third paragraph of Mr. Siegel's letter, he says quite candidly that, well, we don't know how to decide what's a personal attack yet. But go back to his first paragraph, he'd already decided. As the executive director, interim that is, he should not be making any comments about voting one way or the other, implying people should vote one way or the other. He has prejudiced the whole election. The other thing that's most important to know about is, you know, he's been playing this role with numerous conflicts of interest here. He's representing Pacifica in a lawsuit. He's also representing Pacifica's employee. He's representing the board with regard to various things. Her severance, he publicly went public with the severance that she was going to receive, and talked also about the severance principles that Pacifica has, all of which is confidential information. And he was involved representing her during the development of that severance, but he was also representing Pacifica at the same time. So, you know, the conflicts involved here and the prejudicial actions taken by the IED are at best despicable in my mind. And if the board had any courage, you know, they would fire him immediately for posting that letter.
Well, I think unfair election practices is the main issue. As I understand it, we are not having our cards played. How does KPFA's membership know who to vote for if they're not informed? They should be informed about the candidates and a choice. Otherwise, generally in most elections, the candidates are given mailing list of voters, or they can get mailing list of voters, and then they can petition the voters. But I don't think this happened in this case. We haven't been given a list, you know, to reach out, even in the absence of any video or cards or audio cards that should have been played by now. But that didn't happen, so I'm out here to protest unfair election practices on the part of the management of KPFA.